I read a statistic this morning that said that Christianity is no longer the United Kingdom's recognized religion. It made me start thinking about the case that we have been covering this week. We have been covering this tragic case involving Austin Metcalf and Carmelo Anthony. You may be wondering, why did I bring up this statistic? I brought up this statistic because it really made me think about the morality issue that's happening around the world. We are seeing a breakdown in Christianity and values and the importance of having a moral compass. And unfortunately, the people who are being affected by this the most is the younger generation, Generation Z, Generation Alpha. We're seeing that they are unfortunately committing unthinkable crimes that maybe were not as common back in the day. Obviously, we know that unaliving people has been happening since the beginning of time. But we see that obviously in our country, the United States, it is happening so much amongst younger people. And so we're going to talk about the importance of a moral compass on today's show. And I want to share a brief story with you of one that really impacted me. Before we get into those things, the importance of a moral compass and morality and teaching your children about morality, I want to recap the story of Austin Metcalf and what happened to him on April 2nd. And also, I want to take some time to put myself in both family shoes, because this is a tragedy on both ends. And there will be a call to action at the end of this show. So you're going to want to make sure that you watch until the end. I'm Tamera, and you're watching the Tamera Nealy Show. I would like to welcome back all my returning subscribers. And if you're new here, I would like to let you know I'm happy you're here. Okay? So let's start off by praying really quick. Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for the opportunity to share the good news with others, because so many around the world need to hear it. Lord, I pray for Austin Metcalf's family. We know that Austin Metcalf's funeral is tomorrow. So Lord, I pray that you give them peace and comfort. Give them a sign that you are with them today and tomorrow and every day after, as they're about to bury their son, 17-year-old Austin Metcalf. This is a tragedy that so many people around the world have been following all week long, ever since we heard about this tragedy on April 2nd. And I also want to pray for Carmelo Anthony and his family. Lord, I pray that you give them peace, that surpasses all understanding. I pray that you be with them as well. Because I know that I believe that Carmelo Anthony's family was not expecting this. This was an unexpected tragedy that has impacted them. And unfortunately, their son is going to pay the cost for his actions. And it's really sad for them too. So my heart does go out to them, and I pray for them, and I lift them up too, as they're navigating this terrible time. I pray for the online viewers. Lord, I pray that you help them to view this story through the lens of truth, through the lens of honesty, through the lens of empathy, through the lens of understanding, of how these events have impacted these families. Lord, I just pray that you intervene, because there's so much division that's going on online, that you heal our country, because we know that this situation has exposed a sin issue in this country that needs to be addressed. And we know, Jesus, that you're the only one who can address it. In Jesus' name, amen. Before we do the recap that we've been doing every day of what happened on April 2nd, I want to do something just a little bit different. I want us to quickly put our feet in both families' shoes really quick. And you may wonder why I'm doing this. It's because there's a lot of division happening, race division happening online. And that is not what we want. We want unity in this country. We want people uniting around the truth, the facts in this case, not basing this case off of race, but we see that that is exactly what's happening online, which is what Austin Metcalf's dad asked us not to do, not to make this about a race issue. But of course, people have decided to do that. So I want to quickly put our feet in the family shoes really quick. So let's go over Austin's family's reaction to the events. On April 2nd, Austin's family got a call from Austin's dad, got a call from Hunter Metcalf that Austin Metcalf had been stabbed in the chest and that he needed to hurry and rush to where the Frisco track meet. And so Austin Metcalf's dad rushes to the Frisco track meet. Hunter briefs him on what happened. Austin Metcalf's dad then eventually, around that same time, kisses his son and he says, "This is not goodbye, this is see you later." So we know that later that day, Austin Metcalf's dad was interviewed. And he was interviewed by the news, and they asked him about the event. And we saw that Austin's dad was so impacted by this. It was emotional watching. I was very emotional even just watching him recall what he had learned about Austin Metcalf's fate and what happened. And we even see him hunch down, like he hunches over and he's like, "I need a minute. I need to take a minute." And he goes off camera for a second. We hear him crying out because he's horrified about what happened to his son, Austin Metcalf. He comes back on camera and he tells us, I don't know if this was before or after he had walked off camera, but we know that in the same interview, he says that he forgives Carmelo Anthony for taking his son's life. That is a powerful statement. And I think it's important that we don't forget that statement. That shows the type of father Austin Metcalf's dad is. And it speaks a lot to the type of person who I've heard Austin Metcalf was. He has been described as being a loyal person, somebody who is always there for you no matter what. That's the person that Austin Metcalf was described as. And I think it's important to remember that. I don't want Austin Metcalf forgotten as we continue to cover this case, because this case is about getting justice for Austin Metcalf. And I think people are so focused on Carmelo Anthony and playing, the victim tactics that are being played in Carmelo Anthony's situation, because he has to suffer the consequences for his actions. We'll get into Carmelo Anthony in a second. That people are forgetting the victim in this case, Austin Metcalf, and his family. So we also know that his mom learned about what happened shortly after. And we saw that she was very emotional in her interview. Hunter Metcalf spoke on his mom's behalf, and she was obviously just very emotional and sad, heartbroken. I think it's important that we remember the families in this situation. So we have covered Austin Metcalf's family, a brief reaction, a brief overview of what we know. His twin brother also had described holding Austin in his arms, trying to stop the bleeding. He described that he didn't know that Austin had been stabbed. I mean, like, he didn't see the stabbing. But as soon as he turned around, he noticed and he ran over and tried to help his brother. Imagine holding your twin brother in your arms as they're taking their last breaths. Let's make sure we pray for Hunter Metcalf. I can only imagine how he's feeling. I can only imagine what his nights look like, what his nights have looked like this past week, knowing that his brother was not coming home with him. Okay. So now that we have covered the Metcalf family, let's go to Carmelo Anthony's family. So as far as we know, Carmelo Anthony's family has not made physical comments. As far as like Carmelo Anthony's family has not come on to be interviewed. Yeah, they have not come on to be interviewed. However, Carmelo Anthony's father released a statement. Carmelo Anthony's father released a statement. He said, he's a good kid. He was referring to Carmelo Anthony. He works 2 jobs. He's an A student and has a 3.7 GPA. So I was thinking about why Carmelo Anthony's father released this particular statement, because I thought it was, in my opinion, rude and disrespectful, knowing that Austin Metcalf's family had released the fact that Austin Metcalf had a nearly perfect GPA and he he was a D1 athlete recruit. And I thought it was very disrespectful to come back with that response when your son had just committed a senseless act that did not have to happen. Your son had just unalived somebody. And I'm trying to put myself in Carmelo Anthony's family's shoes. So what I will say is this. I was thinking about why Andrew Anthony had responded the way he did. And I guess maybe he responded the way he did because he was in shock. You know, imagine getting a call that your son, who you know is the football captain of his team, one of 5 football captains, your son, according to Andrew Anthony, had a great GPA going for him. He had a lot, going for him. He had 2 jobs. He was working real hard. Imagine getting a call that your son had committed this crime. So maybe he was just in shock. I'll give him that. He was in shock. Like, no, this couldn't be my son. My son could never commit this egregious crime. My son could never hurt somebody in this way. Maybe that's what he was thinking. And so that's why I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt here. And I'm saying, okay, maybe that's what he was thinking. And that's why he released a statement. So Carmelo Anthony's family finds out. Father finds out. That's the statement that he releases. We haven't heard anything about what his mother, I don't think his mother's spoken out. If she has, I don't know about it. But on the Carmelo Anthony side of things, his family, I would assume that they were completely in shock. And I could imagine his mother being very disappointed, probably super emotional because she's a woman. I could imagine her being very, very emotional. Because we know how us women are, we definitely take on the emotions of others. I can imagine her being very upset. So that's that side of, that's Carmelo Anthony's side of the case. Carmelo Anthony himself is probably, I don't know how he's feeling right now. I don't know what he's thinking right now. But there's a lot of thoughts going through that family's mind as well. Carmelo Anthony's bond was set to $1 million. We know that in a previous case just 1 month ago, we saw a black woman judge set another black woman's bond to $1 million because she left her kids at home alone for years. And some of you may be wondering, why did I bring up race in that? And it's because, they're trying to make it seem like Carmelo Anthony getting this high bond is a race thing. And so I'm pointing out the fact that in another situation, I saw that a black judge had set a high bond for a black woman as well. And so I do think that Carmelo Anthony's bond is going to be reduced because even in the case with the black woman that I just mentioned, her bond was reduced because it does, according to the law, have to be reasonable. And it has to be, there are laws that protect people from super, super high bonds. So I do suspect that his bond is going to be lowered. As far as the charges, I do think that Carmelo Anthony's charges will be lowered. And you may be wondering, why will Carmelo Anthony's charges be lowered? I want to point out the key differences between first degree murder and second degree murder. So it says the key difference between first degree and second degree murder lies in the presence of premeditation and deliberation. First degree murder requires proof that the killing was premeditated and deliberate, meaning the defendant had time to think about and plan the act before committing it. Second degree murder, on the other hand, generally involves intent to kill, but without the implement of premeditation and deliberation. And so we know that there is a debate surrounding whether or not Carmelo Anthony's decision was premeditated or not. Why would you bring a knife to a track event? That's what I don't understand. The judge will decide if the charges are brought down from first degree to second degree murder, but also people are saying that it could be brought down to manslaughter. Manslaughter in legal terms is the unlawful killing of another person without malice, a forethought, a premeditation, intent to kill, distinguishing it from murder, and is further classified as either voluntary or involuntary. Yeah, I don't agree with the manslaughter charge. They may try and say that Carmelo Anthony had some mental health issues and that's the reason why he did what he did. Maybe that's how they'll try and get the manslaughter, but I do think that this was first or second degree murder, and I'm praying for justice to be served in this case, because Austin Metcalf's family and Austin Metcalf did not deserve to go through what they went through, and that's why we're going to talk about a moral compass really quick in this next segment. So quickly, before we go to the next segment, I want to play, just on the Carmelo Anthony side, I would like to play a clip from Carmelo Anthony's friend. This was an interview that she had participated in. This is his alleged friend. I want to quickly shout out Eat Cake Clips on TikTok for providing this footage to me. I did not know that Carmelo Anthony's friend had spoken out, but because of their social media, because of this TikTok account, I was able to be notified. I want to shout out my TikTok community. All right, so I want you to watch this video really quick of what his friend had to say, so that you guys can see, just so that we further provide information regarding Carmelo Anthony's side of things.
Centennial students shocked about what happened, that one of their classmates could be charged with such a serious offense. One girl that we spoke with knew Anthony pretty well, that she says, and told us this.
I'm in shock because it's like, I wouldn't expect that from him. I only know him fighting and stuff, like, but to take someone's life is just like a different level.
Let's move on to our next segment. I want to talk to you about morality. I want to talk to you about the importance of a moral compass. And as I spoke about earlier, I think that this generation, the younger generation, is missing. I think that adults are doing them a great disservice, and I say that respectfully. Parents are doing their children a great disservice by not making sure that their children are involved in a church, actively participating in church. I want to say this. I don't know if Carmelo Anthony was actively in church. I don't know what he was, if he was involved. But I know the importance of knowing the Lord and how much knowing Jesus really can impact someone's moral compass. And so I want to encourage parents to make sure that your kids are involved in a local church, a community where they can learn about having a good value system. Because as I talked about the statistic that I saw this morning in the UK, which you may wonder why the UK, why bring up the UK when this is in America? It's a world issue. Sin issue is a world issue, and the UK happens to be the second most popular country that watches this show. And also I studied abroad in the United Kingdom in 2023 when I was a junior in college. And I met this girl. I want to quickly say this story really quick. I met this girl who, this young woman, she was a greeter at a church that I went to while I was in the UK, and her and I had a conversation. And she asked me about my faith, about my community, about just everything, my involvement in church, all those things. And I kind of shared my story and kind of how I felt about things. And I told her I had started going to a local church, and, I wasn't involved. I wasn't doing anything, but I'm starting to go. And to be honest, I was dealing with a lot of church hurt because I had been hurt by the church. And I just really didn't want to deal with church people, to be honest. But she had told me, she said, Tamera, it's very important. And I don't remember the first part of this, but I just remembered these words. She told me, you need to stop being a consumer and start being a shareholder. And I looked at her like, ma'am, did you just tell me? But she was right. Okay. She was right. So I needed to stop being just a consumer and start being a shareholder. And so later after that conversation, I ended up becoming a greeter at my church back home. And so I shared that to say it's very important to be involved in your local church. Community is something, and community is important, and it's something that's missing in today's age because the young people are so focused on their phones, they're so focused on what's happening on TikTok and what's happening blah blah blah, that they're not being taught the values that are so important and that are going to sustain our country in the future. And why am I bringing this up? Because people are supporting Carmelo Anthony. They're sending him hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you have to wonder why they're doing that. And it's because that we have a breakdown in a moral compass in this country. People don't understand the importance of value in life. When you can, and it's not just in this situation, you see the same people say that it's okay to kill an unborn baby, to unalive an unborn baby. The same people who are supporting Carmelo Anthony are some of the same people who are at the abortion clinics. And so we need to make sure that we are taking this seriously, that we are taking the assignments that God has given us seriously. And he commands believers to be a part of the Great Commission. He tells us to go and share the gospel. And so in your workplace this week, in your community this week, with your children this week, make sure you're having dinner with your kids around the table and you're talking about the importance of having a good moral compass, the importance of having good Christian values that will sustain this country for the next generation. Because at the end of the day, we're not always going to be here. We want to make sure that there's a younger generation that can carry on the values that we believe in and that we support, okay? And so I had to tell you that. It's also important to note that Austin Metcalf was planning on being at church that night. April 2nd, he would have been at church that night. And so that's the thing, is you have to teach your kids that life is short. Tomorrow's not promised, and they need to know Jesus today. Okay? Teach them that the truth is colorblind. Teach them the difference between right and wrong. We've covered so much in today's episode. We've covered so much this week, really, from talking about this topic and the issues involving it, the sin issues that are deep rooted in it. And we've even talked about Carmelo Anthony's bond, whether or not it should be lowered or shouldn't. We're reasonable people. We know that how the law works. And so we know that Carmelo Anthony will have his day in court. We know that he's entitled to a fair and speedy trial. And we know and we believe that justice will be served in this case. We also know that Carmelo Anthony is presumed innocent until proven guilty, despite the fact that he regardless of the fact that despite the fact that he's already admitted to the crime, we know that he said he did it because he should have just shut his mouth, but he kept talking because he's an impulsive young man from what we've observed. And the officer had said he thought he had the suspect in custody, and Carmelo Anthony then says, "No, I'm not alleged. I did it," is what Carmelo Anthony said. So anyways, we got to teach our kids better than this. And even if you don't have children, I'm sure you have young people around you who you're influencing. So share the good news with them. I'm Tamera. I want to thank you for watching this episode of the Tamera Nealy Show. Be sure to hit the like button to boost this in the algorithm. Also, join the conversation. Let me know your thoughts. And we won't be covering this case tomorrow. The family, Austin Metcalf's family, will be laying Austin Metcalf to rest in honoring his life. And so I'll be thinking about them tomorrow. But I want to thank you for joining, and you'll hear from me next week, hopefully. I love you guys, and you'll hear from me soon, okay?